Time to pull up a chair. We've got another great story for today in the rLounge. When you're trying to gift your family a dream vacation to Hawaii and your sister goes full Godzilla on your plans. Today in the rLounge, grab your sunglasses, pack your bags, and get ready for some well-deserved R&R. That is, until you come back home to reality. Sister banned me from the trip I paid for, so I canceled her ticket and went for the family trip without her. I, 29 male, come from a relatively close-knit family. We are 3 siblings. I, my younger brother, 26 male, and my younger sister, Bonnie, 24 female. I share a good bond with my brother, but I've always had a bit of a rocky relationship with Bonnie. It's not that we don't get along, but she's always been a bit entitled. Growing up, our parents tended to favor her slightly because she was the baby of the family. While I've tried to let it slide, there have been instances where her behavior has really tested my patience. Not only me, but my brother also faces the same issue with her. His patience runs thinner than mine, so every time they are in the same room, there would be a scuffle between them. Earlier this year, I received a beefy bonus at work. My parents' anniversary was around the corner. I thought it would be a great idea to treat my family to a nice vacation. It had been years since we all went somewhere together, and I thought it would be a fantastic way to reconnect and celebrate our parents' anniversary. I planned a week-long trip to Hawaii, covering all expenses. Flights, accommodations, activities, everything. Hawaii was the place my parents went for their honeymoon, so nothing better than giving them the opportunity to reminisce about their younger days. When I announced the trip to my parents, they were over the moon. I knew they would be delighted, especially because of the location. I was confident that my brother would also appreciate my gesture. I was only apprehensive about Bonnie's reaction. It's hard to predict her mood. However, on hearing about the trip, both of them jumped in excitement, especially Bonnie. She started ranting about everything she wanted to do and the Instagram reels she'd make. I shrugged it off, happy that she was excited. Everyone seemed thrilled, and I was glad I could do something nice for my family. However, that moment of happiness soon turned bitter when Bonnie started nagging that she wanted to plan the vacation. I told her the trip was sponsored by me, so I wanted to plan everything myself. She threw tantrums about it, saying I was not good at planning stuff, so I hand over this responsibility to her. It was not an ask from her, but moreover, a demand that I pass down everything to her. There were a couple of reasons I wanted to do it myself. First, it was my treat. Second, I know Bonnie's extravagant choices when others are paying for them. She would book the costliest stuff without thinking twice. I had booked everything as per my budget. Yeah, man, she has this thing. If someone takes her out, she would order the most premium dish on the menu. On the other hand, her treat is a takeaway from Subway. My parents tried to mediate that if I was busy, I could take Bonnie's help in planning the activities. I told everyone that the activities were a surprise to keep them on their toes. Bonnie insisted to know them prior so that they could go shopping for appropriate outfits for the activities. I assured her there was nothing that would catch her off guard. I arranged for a few surprises during the trip, like a private luau and a snorkeling adventure. It was going to be epic. The weeks leading up to the trip were exciting and tiring. I had to shop for everything. I ran a shopping spree with my brother, whereas Bonnie was running a shopping marathon. However, as the dates came closer, her nagging became persistent. She was upset that I hadn't let her plan it. She felt left out and accused me of trying to upstage her. She annoyed me to the point where I gave her the itinerary of the trip to get her off my back. She immediately called me and was furious. She pointed out a few things that should be rearranged to make everyone feel comfortable. Her suggestion sounded legitimate, so I moved the schedule as per her recommendation, and that boosted her ego. She was like, "That's the reason I wanted to plan it. Attention to detail, you see?" This made me wonder that if there was the slightest inconvenience in the trip, Bonnie would come behind me with her sarcastic comments, so better let her take this over. So I gave her the access to my account to make any changes. I told her to not make any major changes in the schedule and no addition or removal of activities. She could only reschedule it, and that too only after my approval. She agreed. She immediately announced in the family group that she had taken over the planning for the trip and made some changes. Few additions she did, which was pretty cool, like we all wear matching outfits each day. It was fine until then. A week before the trip, I saw that she had canceled some of the activities I booked and replaced them with ones she preferred. She also mentioned that she had made executive decisions regarding the itinerary and that everyone should follow her lead. I was livid. This was supposed to be a gift from me, and she had completely hijacked it. I called her, trying to reason with her, but she was adamant. She said that since she was better at planning, I should let her handle it. I stood firm on my ground and said no way. She had done enough to sabotage my plan, and now she should back off. She accused me of being controlling and hung up. That night, I received a call from my parents. Bonnie told on me, and they wanted to know what was going on. I explained the situation on a surface level to not spoil the surprise activities for them. I expected them to understand. To my shock, they sided with Bonnie. They said that since she was so excited about the trip, I should let her have some control over it. They didn't seem to grasp that she had completely taken over and disregarded my efforts and money. They said it doesn't matter who was planning for it and who is paying. The fact is we are family and we should have the best time together in Hawaii. I felt frustrated and unappreciated. In a moment of rage, I wanted to cancel the whole trip, but I calmed down and took a step back. I didn't cancel the trip, but I stopped engaging with the planning. I figured if Bonnie wanted to be in charge so badly, then let her handle it. I can sit back and enjoy myself, even if it wasn't the trip I envisioned. However, things took a turn for the worse 2 days ago. We are set to leave tomorrow. I received a notification that my tickets had been canceled successfully. I was like, what the hell? I immediately called up the airlines and got to know that it was canceled from my account, so there's nothing they can do about it. No surprise, it was Bonnie. I called her in anger. She answered as if nothing had happened. I yelled, how dare you cancel my tickets? She chuckled and responded, oh yeah, I did that. Isn't that funny? Haha. I lost my crap and shouted, care to explain? She replied, okay, I hate to say this. I know you are funding it and blah blah blah, but we can't have you on the trip. Dude, you're too controlling and your negative attitude would ruin the vacation for everyone. I have discussed this with everyone and the family has agreed to dump you. You are not worth spoiling our trip. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The trip that I had paid for and planned was now happening without me. My sister had somehow convinced everyone that I was the problem, and they had all agreed to go along with it. At that moment, something in me snapped. I wasn't going to let her walk all over me. I logged into my account and canceled her ticket. I then rebooked it in my name and changed the password of the account so that she could not access it anymore or make any changes to the travel itinerary. I sent the message to the family group chat. Since Bonnie has decided I'm not welcome on the trip I paid for, I've canceled her ticket. If any of you wants to stay with her, I'll be happy to cancel your tickets too. The fallout was immediate. My brother called me immediately and said he had no idea about Bonnie's move. I narrated him the discussion I had with her, and he confirmed that she was making it up. He assured me that he had never agreed to dump me and was pretty sure that our parents would never ban me from the trip I was paying for. It was a relief to know that at least he was not turning blind-eyed to Bonnie's evilness. While I was still talking to him, my parents called me, furious that I had canceled Bonnie's ticket. They accused me of being petty and vindictive, but I stood my ground. I explained that I had planned and paid for the trip as a gift to the family, and if they didn't want me there, then I better take a solo trip, but I wouldn't give away this as charity and sacrifice myself. They confirmed they'd never asked Bonnie to cancel my tickets, but they are also not thrilled that I canceled hers. They want us all to go together for this trip. I told them I wasn't going to let her dictate the terms of my generosity. Bonnie, of course, was beside herself with rage. She sent me a barrage of angry texts, calling me every name under the sun. I forwarded the text to my parents to show them what their little monster was up to. My dad called me and volunteered to mediate the situation between us. He said he would loop in Bonnie in the call, and she would apologize to me, and I should rebook her ticket so that we can have the vacation together. I wanted to push back at this demand, but a part of me knew that Bonnie would never apologize, so I just said yes to my dad's proposal. He added Bonnie to the call. She was too angry to sense it was a conference call. Dad told her she acted mean by canceling my tickets, so she should apologize to me. Before listening any further, she snapped at Dad and said she wouldn't apologize because she did the right thing. We both could hear her sigh. Apologize to that jerk? My butt. Dad hung up the call. He had nothing to say after that. I called him back and said, do you now see how cruel your daughter is, or do you still want me to take her? He remained silent and said he was torn between two children. I know I have done the right thing, but I do feel sad that the trip would not be the same after this fallout. This was not how I wanted it. I envisioned this to be a family trip, and no matter what I feel about Bonnie, she is still part of the family. My brother and I might not be affected, but my parents would definitely be bothered by her absence. Thanks for reading. I'm looking forward to engaging in the comments. First, let's appreciate the irony that Bonnie, who can't plan a decent lunch without maxing out someone's credit card, thinking she could outdo you. The fact that she even tried to hijack your meticulously planned trip is both hilarious and infuriating. I mean, her idea of planning probably involves scrolling through Instagram and booking anything with more than 100 likes. Matching outfits? Cute. Canceling your tickets? Not so much. And your parents? Bless their hearts. They're probably so used to Bonnie's antics that they can't see the forest for the entitled brat standing in the way. I can almost picture them suggesting that you let Bonnie help with the trip planning, like asking a toddler to drive a stick shift. So you canceled her ticket and rebooked it yourself? Absolutely brilliant. If Bonnie wants to play dirty, she should expect a bit of mud thrown back. Update 1. Here's a new update. The situation got worse between me and Bonnie. After being dumped from the trip, she ganged up against me. She tried to pull my brother by her side. She pitched him the idea of co-sponsoring the trip with her so that they all could abandon me. He laughed at her suggestion and asked if she had that much money to bear 50% of the trip expense. She said, "No, I don't have right now, but I'll pay you as soon as I can." My brother shook his head in disbelief that she wanted him to fund the whole trip while she would pose this to be half sponsored by her in front of my parents. We both knew that she would never pay him back. I mean, how would she? She doesn't have a real job. She works a minimum wage, and that too, she misses work whenever she is not in the mood. My brother asked her if she was serious about this. She responded, "Hell yeah, but if the Hawaii trip is too much to bear, we can go to Mexico." My brother burst out in laughter at her face and said he was not a fool to trade off a free ride to Hawaii with a paid trip to Mexico, and that too with her would make him a free photographer for the whole vacation. She hung up on him and called him a simp. Until the last moment, she tried to guilt trip my parents about cutting her off on the family trip. Thankfully, this time my parents stuck to their grounds that she had to apologize to me if she wanted a spot on the vacation. On the side rail, my parents tried to convince me to be a bigger person, forgive Bonnie, and take her with us, but I remained unmoved. The day of the trip arrived, and I went to the airport to meet my family. My brother was the only one who was jumping in excitement. My parents were still upset, but they had no choice but to accept that Bonnie wouldn't be joining us. As we boarded the plane, there was a tension in the air. I could see the disappointment in my parents' eyes. When we arrived in Hawaii, I executed my planning and ensured everyone had their best time. We went for the private luau, the snorkeling adventure, and even a helicopter tour of the island. Despite the initial discomfort, we started to relax and enjoy ourselves. My parents gradually warmed up to the idea that this was still a family vacation, albeit without Bonnie. Throughout the week, I received sporadic messages from Bonnie. She was still furious, and her texts were filled with anger and accusations. My parents occasionally checked in with her, but even they started to see that her behavior was unreasonable. We came back from the trip with loads of fresh memories. We had shared some incredible experiences, and the beauty of Hawaii had a way of melting away the tension. While my parents were still disappointed that Bonnie wasn't there, they appreciated the effort I had put into making the trip memorable. Bonnie had blocked me on social media. She was mad at our parents for choosing me over her. She said she wanted to cut them off, but she can't because she lives in their house. Too bad for her. She called my brother a freeloader and whatnot for siding with me. She also told him and my parents that she never wanted to see me again. It was painful, but I knew that I had done what I needed to do. I don't regret standing up for myself and setting boundaries, but I do wish things had turned out differently. Maybe one day Bonnie will realize that she was on the wrong side and we can mend our relationship. Until then, I'll hold on to the memories of that incredible trip. Thanks for reading this. The audacity to propose Mexico as a backup plan is pure comedy gold. As if anyone would trade a Hawaiian paradise for a Bonnie-funded escapade to Mexico, where your brother would likely end up as her unpaid Instagram photographer. Her idea of co-sponsoring it is as realistic as a unicorn riding a rainbow. It's sad that Bonnie can't see past her own entitlement to recognize the damage she's done. Maybe one day she'll wake up and realize that burning bridges isn't the best way to get across the river. Until then, you've got those amazing Hawaiian memories to hold on to, and hopefully, a lesson learned for everyone involved. Update 2. I have another update on my sister's saga. It's been a while of these incidents, but I was not getting time to update it here. After we came back from the trip, I went back to work. I had to put an extra hour to compensate for my leave, so I could not catch up with my parents about Bonnie. I knew at the back of my head that she must be throwing tantrums at them for enjoying the trip without her. To make her feel worse, my brother and I bombarded the social media with family pictures. It was fun. Almost 3 months later, I went to my parents and found Bonnie's room vacant. I asked them about her and got to know that they had finally thrown her out. Okay, actually not thrown her, but her moved out. She was not serious about her life and career. She missed work on a whim. Since she had no responsibilities for rent and food, she didn't take it seriously. A year ago, my parents demanded rent from her for living in the house. Initially, she freaked out and called them mean and greedy, but when Dad threatened to throw her out, she agreed to pay rent. In 1 year, she had paid only for 3 months. Every month, she would pull up some new reason from her sleeve for not paying rent. After my parents returned from the trip, as expected, she blew up. My parents tried to calm her down. They brought gifts from her from the trip, but she threw them away right in their face. My dad was like, "Enough of this entitlement. Pack your bags and I'm going to drop you out." Her demeanor changed immediately. She started sobbing and hugging Mom, saying she was behaving like this because she missed them and was hurt that we left her alone. My mom said she had called this upon herself because we didn't intend to leave her. Her narcissistic behavior forced us to drop her. She put up a crying act and said she can't live without them and promised to pay the rent every month. My parents had already given her enough time to mend her ways, But she continued her narcissistic self, so this time they didn't give in to her manipulations and moved her out. My parents should have pulled the strings much earlier. I mean, she's 24 and doesn't have a proper job or any plans for her future. She's still on our parents' insurance and drives their car. My dad scouted a small apartment for her and even paid 2 months' rent. I didn't like the way she was served everything on a silver platter, but this was still better than letting her live in their house for free. They were still concerned about her well-being, but moving her out was the best thing to make her self-reliant. Little did they know that she was a tough nut to crack. My mom called me a week ago and gave me the remaining updates about Bonnie. So, 2 months' rent was covered by my dad. While she was leaving, my mom gave her some ready-to-eat food and snacks that covered her for a week or so. After that, she often dropped by my parents and stayed up till dinner time. My mom had to offer her the food. She even started staying the night at my parents' every now and then. Initially, they put up with her thinking she was missing home, but when she continued to show up even after 3 or 4 months, they decided to confront her. Bonnie confessed she had defaulted on the rent, hence she was hiding from the landlord. So basically, she didn't pay any rent at all. The 2 months in which she lived in her apartment were on Dad's money. My mom asked her what she did do with her salary. She said she bought shoes to go to work. Wow. Mom offered to loan her some money to clear off her rent, but she insisted on letting her move back home. Mom asked Dad to intervene, and he put his foot down and said no, not anymore. He was done bailing her out, and now she was on her own. It was her life, and she had to take charge of it. She tried to guilt trip about how could they abandon their daughter and all that crap. Dad said her tactics were not going to work anymore, and she should stop bothering them. He even said that the next time she approached them for any help, they wouldn't answer the door. I feel this was slightly harsh of him to say this, but I can understand he also had her enough. Bonnie reached out to my brother for help. He said he was leading a hand-to-mouth life and could not help her financially. He asked her if she'd ask me for help. She said she won't do that because it would boost my ego and I would make her feel like a loser. Oh, surely I would, because she is a loser. Then she asked my brother to borrow money from me, saying he needed it for himself and then lend it to her. My brother was like, "I'm out of this crap show. You need the money, you ask him." She requested him not to tell me about this. He said he can't keep a secret. She turned bitter towards him and called him my bootlicker. She called him my pet who runs behind me for free meatloaf. I heard these stories with a pinch of salt. Her entitled behavior had touched the roof. Someone had to call her out. I'm glad that I was the first one to call out her BS and cut her off of the trip. I still remember how my parents reached to it and how they gaslighted the situation, demanding to include Bonnie. I'm glad my parents finally realized how toxic Bonnie was and how she was using her daughter card to manipulate them. That's it until now. Thanks for engaging in my post. If there's anything more to my sister's situation, I'll update the thread. After coming back from Hawaii, the fun apparently didn't end for Bonnie. Fast forward 3 months and surprise, surprise, Bonnie's room is vacant. Looks like she finally managed to get herself evicted from the parental palace. A whole year of dodging rent payments with excuses that probably range from the dog ate my checkbook to I spent it on necessary life upgrades, aka shoes. Classic. Props to your parents for finally putting their foot down. They gave her an apartment, paid 2 months' rent, and even provided snacks. If only they knew they were setting up the ultimate freeloading headquarters. Bonnie turning their house into her personal restaurant and hotel was the cherry on top. Avoiding the landlord by hiding at your parents' place? That's some serious dedication to the art of freeloading. You were the first to see through the act, OP. Your parents finally caught on, even if it took some serious drama. It's a tough love lesson, but necessary. Here's hoping Bonnie eventually gets her act together. Though I won't hold my breath. What do you make of this? Share your thoughts with us in the comments below. Thank you for joining us today in the rLounge. Be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on our next video. See you soon! And put your chair back where you found it.